Welcome to Yankee Stadium.
Tonight, as the Major League Baseball lockout enters month number 3, special guest Patrick Hennessy joins me to predict when it will finally come to an end. Next, we'll debate the Yankees' first base situation. Does an extended lockout mean that Luke Voit may get one more chance? And finally, some under-the-radar players to watch in 2022. It all starts now. We're live, and this is the Frieze. Cue ominous lockout music. Day 60 of the MLB lockout. No end in sight. Let this little theme count down. How you doing, Patrick?
I'm a fan of it. Derek, I like it. I like the intro, too. Like, it got me so hype. I feel like I could, go into, a UFC cage right now.
Do it. So, I miss baseball. I'm hoping that we'll get it back soon. The MLB and the MLBPA are meeting tomorrow. Pitchers and catchers were set to report in a couple of weeks. That may not happen. In fact, I'll bet it doesn't. My original prediction, if you remember, we went live, I think it was the night before lockout or shortly after lockout, and I predicted February 14th, Valentine's Day, would be the end of the lockout. I thought Rob Manfred would send Tony Clark a big batch of flowers and candy, and they'd make up and we'd have baseball, but it's looking more and more like maybe March or later. So to the people in the comments, drop your prediction for the date that the lockout will end. Patrick, I'm going to toss it over to you. What are you thinking? What's your prediction?
Dude, I'm going to be honest with you, Derek. I genuinely have no idea. I'll throw out a random date, just for the hell of it, but I don't think anyone knows, and I don't think, any of us could even make, a reasonable guess at this point. I'd probably say, if I'm channeling, my inner Nostradamus, something's telling me, wait, is it a leap year?
I don't know. Is it a leap year?
If it's a leap year, that changes the game. I'm just throwing that one out there. But if it's not, let's say February 20th.
All right. So that would allow them to probably start the season on time. I'm amending my February 14th. I'm going to say right around March 1st. I think it's going to get to the point where it's going to start costing people money. And it's not going to cost the players a lot of money because I don't think they get paid in spring training anyway. But the owners, it'll start costing them a little bit of money. You won't get any of the revenue from spring training games, and then you put the beginning of the actual season in peril. However, the people that are really going to get screwed by this are the people who work at the stadiums, the minor league stadiums, the where they have spring training, the vendors, even the people who do the valet parking and, the businesses right around. If you go to Legends Field or Steinbrenner Field now, right around the stadium, there's, a number of restaurants and things like that you can go to. And that they're counting on that influx from spring training. And I'm sure it's like that in every major league city throughout spring training. There's restaurants. And those people, as usual, the people on the low end are getting screwed. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and don't forget, these are the same people that are missing, or they already missed out on a lot of money in 2020. If we're talking about the vendors and all the people around the stadium, there was no fans in attendance for the entirety of the 2020 season. So 2021 was kind of a rebound, and now if they're missing any sort of time in 2022, dude, it's deadly easily. But as far as the lockout goes, I don't know. I've spoken about this to death at this point. It doesn't seem like my take is really changing too much. I've thrown this out there multiple times. I consider myself a diehard Yankees fan, as do you, right?
Absolutely.
And I kind of feel myself fading away from the sport of baseball during this time, simply because there's nothing to keep track about it. There's nothing to really watch about it. You turn on MLB Network, it's like the 1964 World Series. Not really interested in watching that. Sorry. And that has kind of led me to find some other interest and gravitate towards other things that I could maybe just take up my time with. Like the NFL, bro. Like I have not watched a game of football in like the last 4 years, but this season I'm watching, like this offseason, I'm watching every single football game. Like my life depends on it just because there's no baseball, bro. So imagine what the casual baseball fans are like right now, not having any baseball related information. They probably forgot the sport existed, Derek. They probably can't name 5 players on the Yankees anymore.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I have noticed that, I mean, obviously traffic always dips for our channels in the winter, but I just had my lowest month of traffic since
Same.
May of 2020. You know, and that was when I was just getting started and there was no baseball that, you know, that was during the season in which there was no baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, it's getting hard to connect with.
And that's just us.
Right.
Take that into account. That's us. Yankees content creators. That's such a small niche in Major League Baseball world. Imagine like what MLB Network's ratings are like and how far that they're down. Imagine like what the MLBshop.com's sales figures are like because of this. Everyone is failing, and it just doesn't seem like there's any sense of urgency in getting anything done.
Yeah, I mean, how many times can we watch the same classic games on MLB Network? I must have watched the Big Red Machine play 6 times this winter. It's like they played 10 years before I was born. Anyway, so I have my prediction May 1st. You're saying February 20th. I hope that one of us is right.
No, March 1st, you said.
March 1st. What'd I say?
You just said May.
May. No,
You're almost getting a heart attack.
March 1st. No, May 1st. Oh, man, that'd be rough. All right, so we got a number of topics that I want to touch on tonight. And the first of which is the first base situation. Now, I'm going to hand it off to you in just a second, but I'm going to tell you why DJ LeMahieu needs to stay on the team, but why he can't be the everyday first baseman, right? I've seen a lot of people say just play DJ there. I'm going to tell you why that can't happen. There's still COVID. There's still going to be people going on the COVID IL next year. Probably most Yankees will get Omicron or whatever, with the new variant, Ultra, whatever, at some point next year and have to sit out for 10 days. So you need somebody who can play all over the infield, right? That's DJ LeMahieu. He can play third. He can play second. He can play first. He's not going to play much short. You got Oswaldo Cabrera, probably your new utility guy. I don't know what the story is with Gio Urshela. I guess all that will shake out depending on what the Yankees do at short. But you're going to need DJ to be that super utility guy. So you can't lock him in at first base. You just can't do it. And with the shortened period that we're going to have between when this lockout ends and when the season begins, think about if the lockout does end on March 1st or February 20th. It's not like everybody's reporting to spring training the next day. You still got to build a team, and the Yankees did nothing. They did nothing. They got rid of Tyler Wade. They got rid of Clint Frazier and Rougned Odor. They did nothing, which means to me that Luke Voit might be, by default, just because the Yankees won't have time to make any big moves, he might be your starting first baseman. Tell me if you think Luke has a shot to be the guy in 2022.
Yeah, listen, Derek, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I don't know if everyone remembers from the regular season, but I'm a huge Luke Voit guy. Like, I love Luke Voit. And while I would love for him to kind of get the opportunity once again to be the Yankees starting shortstop, especially on opening day, I just don't really see it happening. I mean, I kind of had this thought in my mind, maybe that's why I don't see it, because this goes back all the way to September. I kind of wrote off Luke Voit as a New York Yankee back in August/September of last year when they refused to play him under any circumstances. So I think as of right now, when I imagine like the Yankees starting first baseman on opening day, it's Anthony Rizzo. I know he's not currently under contract, but I think if it really comes down to it, they're gonna sign Rizzo. I think the more the lockout drags on, obviously it becomes a higher likelihood of Voit becoming the Yankees starting first baseman on opening day. And while not a lot of Yankees fans would like to see that, I would be a huge fan of it. Like, we're talking about a dude that carried the 2020 Yankees. Him and DJ LeMahieu were basically the only two who were providing any sort of offensive production. I think a lot of people tend to forget that because of an injury-plagued 2021. But overall, while I would be happy about Luke Voit being the Yankees starting first baseman on opening day, I think the likelihood of that is pretty slim at this point.
So THG in the comments brings up an interesting question. He says, do you think that the players, agents, and teams don't talk? They're forbidden from Major League Baseball from talking. And, with the, right on the heels of the Astros scandal, I know it's not the same thing, but you don't want to be breaking Major League Baseball rules now. You can get draft picks and things like that. So I don't think teams are negotiating. And I agree with Lori. I don't think that Luke Voigt is the guy. Even though, like you said, he did carry the Yankees in 2020. And Anthony Rizzo, like you said, is still out there. But will he take like a discount? You know what I mean? Because you don't want
the answer is yes.
You don't want to pay a ton for a guy who's, if you're going to sign somebody who's already in their 30s like that, you're going to go get Freeman if he's available. You know what I mean? Like if it's just money.
It's a lot more money though.
It is a lot more money. That's a good point. But I just don't, I just don't feel like you've moved the ball any if you bring back Rizzo. I mean, it's the same team that lost last year. I feel like you've got to improve. And where are you going to improve and add lefties? There's no left-handed outfielders out there, right? There's no left-handed hitting shortstops anymore, because one of them just signed with Texas. I just don't see anybody else that can balance out that lineup other than Matt Olson. I think he's the guy that I would be talking to the A's this entire lockout, man, negotiating. So that way, like, if the lockout ends at 12 o'clock, at 12:01, I'm pulling the trigger on a major deal for Matt Olson.
Yeah, I'm honestly like really interested to see how that's going to work out. Like once the lockout does end, I wonder if it's going to be the same case as when the lockout first started or right before the lockout started, when we just see a flurry of moves. Like maybe teams have like been creating like a whole game plan this entire time of what they're planning on doing like the second the lockout ends, and we could see a ridiculous amount of moves like in the days following, because also it depends on when the lockout ends, but teams aren't going to have a lot of time to get things done, so they're going to be in rush mode. That's
going to be so much fun, though. It's going to be like the trade deadline, but with free agents also. You know what I mean? I think the trades are probably going to happen first because teams have been talking, and it takes some time to get free agent deals. But every agent has probably talked to their players and said, "Hey, give me your bottom line number that you'll take, and I'll just go to every team like immediately." And get you. I'm sure a lot of guys are worried about not playing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like Steven Drew one year, Boris held him out, and he ended up not playing until like halfway through the season, and he was never the same again after that.
I think the Yankees signed him that year? Or am I wrong?
I think the Yankees got him. I don't know if it was them who signed him.
He was on the Yankees for a couple years. I want to say like 2014, 2015 maybe. Could be wrong.
I've watched almost every Yankee game for 30 years, and I honestly cannot remember a single Steven Drew moment, like, from his entire time.
Steven Drew had some sneaky pop. Like, the dude would hit, like, 150, but he'd have, like, 20 home runs, like, very sneakily. Shout out Steven Drew.
I need to get his stats up. I don't have his stats. Somebody get me Steven Drew's stats as a Yankee. I don't think he ever hit.
Steven Drew was basically like, he fit the criteria of like the Yankee that everyone hated because that they were so bad, right? So it went from like Steven Drew to Chris Carter to who was after Chris Carter? You had like Pete Kozma, and then you had like Shane Robinson. Steven Drew was basically one of those guys, except out of all of them, he's probably the best. Like I'd equate him to like Rougned Odor, if that's fair.
Yeah, it's fair, I guess. Odor only had, the one season. He's with Baltimore now. How pissed are we going to be if he just kills the Yankees with Baltimore?
He's going to.
I feel like that's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like he's going to be 100%. Putting balls in the upper deck, and he's going to, how he likes to pimp his home runs. He's going to be doing that.
And he's going to have the beard back too.
So. He will have the beard back. It's funny looking at all these Yankees during the winter with their beards. Like Judge looks like a straight up lumberjack. With the beard.
Have you seen Monty?
I have not seen Monty. He's got a beard?
I'm not a Monty guy. I know you're the president of Gumby Nation over
Definitely
there.
The president of
Jordan
Gumby Nation.
Montgomery with a beard? Dude, I might have to be vice president because I think Monty with a beard, that dude easily goes like 20-0 with a sub-2 ERA. No doubt in my mind.
Oh my God. I would love for the Yankees to change that rule. And I know a lot of people are going to push back on that. I get pushback every time I say that.
Same.
But, I mean, it's the 21st century. We're almost a quarter of the way through it already. I mean, you have people looking every kind of way. Like everybody kind of dresses like an avatar now. You know what I mean? Like they do whatever they want and they feel completely comfortable with it. I feel like restricting someone's appearance is kind of like restricting their soul a little bit. You know what I mean? It cuts. Yeah. It like there's something to energy, and I feel like there's beard energy. If you saw the 2004 Red Sox, you would know there's beard energy.
Even the 2013 Red Sox, Derek. I say this all the time. It's that saying. I don't know the exact saying, but it's like if you look good, you'll feel good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I join the Yankees, right, and I feel super confident in myself with long hair and facial hair, like I'm probably going to be performing better just because I'm comfortable in my own body. But if I'm a guy like Aaron Hicks, no offense to Aaron Hicks, let's use Brett Gardner since I already knock on him 24/7. But if I'm Brett Gardner and maybe I want to grow a beard because it'll help me with my confidence because I'm bald and I don't want to look like an egg, like maybe I'll feel better with a beard and maybe that'll make me play better. Because let's be honest, if you're bald, the only thing you kind of like have going for you to make up for it is to have a nice beard. Look at like all like the famous bald guys out there. Most of them have like solid beards to kind of make up for it. The guys on the Yankees can't do that, and it probably hurts them inside.
You know who would look awesome with a beard is Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah,
because I mean the man he's also a giant, just like Judge, but he's already he's got like an intimidating face. He's got like those eyebrows that say like "Don't mess with me," and he's just got that quiet demeanor about him where it's like, he might be just like one verb away from just crumpling you up into a little ball and then throwing you into the nearest wastebasket. And I feel like
we did a whole episode on this years ago. Remember?
I don't remember.
This might have been like 2020. I think we did something about how like the Yankees should, and I offended people with mustaches.
Oh yeah. I do remember that. Stuff. But I just think that Giancarlo with a beard, especially like if it was just like a very thin, like or very like low cut beard. You know what I mean? Just like a trim, neat, just he would be a monster. He would be intimidating. I really think there's something to beard energy. I want to see beard energy, #beard energy in the comments.
Let me ask you a question, Derek. In our lifetime, right? Gun to your head. Do you think we see the policy go away or no?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it. Well, that's a totally.
But it would have to happen for.
How long do I live? How long do I live? Because like,
how old are you?
I'm 38.
Okay, let's say 50 years.
So 50 more years.
Yeah.
All right, I'll sign up for 88. By the way, right now, I'll sign up for 88. Right now, I sign up for 78. Which means in 40 years you're gonna run shit on YouTube, Pat. Do I think it'll change? Yeah, because I mean, think about all the ways that the culture has changed in the last 30 years, and the Yankees are already catching flack for not changing. You know what I mean? For being too stuck in their ways. I think you're going to see an entirely different planet in 30 years.
Yeah. There might be no baseball in 30 years. Like it might be all virtual. You know what I mean?
Seriously, we might have, New York City might be underwater in 30 years. Who knows? I'm hearing the words doomsday glacier on the news. And those are not fun words to hear.
Dude, I'm ready for anything at this point. I'm built different.
I mean, we've gotten used to it. And after 2020, it's like, I'm ready for
numb to everything.
I'm ready for zombies, man. Think about.
I'm good.
Listen to this. I know that like it's been tough for you guys, your generation, because you guys have the financial collapse of 2008, and you had the COVID pandemic and growing up on social media, all that stuff. I've had 2 World Trade Center bombings. One of which was 9/11. We had the Unabomber. We had we also had all the stuff you got. The financial collapse and now COVID and stuff. It's like, but then I think back about the older generations and they had like World War II and the Depression. It's like our problems are actually kind of okay compared to, like, if you think of somebody born in 1900 and they lived 70 years, they had 2 world wars. They had the invention of flight, you know what I mean? Like the invention of the airplane, and then all the way up to landing on the moon. Like, if you think about the range that things can change in the specter of time, I just think that the Yankees keeping this beard policy, it's like they're digging in on a piece of the culture that's gone. You don't need to be clean shaven and stuff like that to be good at your job. There's no such thing as looking professional anymore. I work with people who have tattoos on their face and those big earlobe holes that you could put like half of your fist through. And I mean, they're great. They're great people. They're great to work with. I just don't think that your appearance matters that much anymher. You know what I mean? Like, we're all digital now. Our entire identity is digital, and our whatever we choose to do with our meat body as the world is going up in flames around us, I think should be nobody's business but our own. But that's just me.
Yeah, no, I agree, 1000%.
All right, so the other thing I wanted to bring up before we get to the audience Q&A, I asked you to come up with some guys that you think are going to surprise people this year. And if you've been watching The Loop, the audience, and if you're listening, obviously you're not watching The Loop, but I've been showing a reel of a number of folks that I think could have, really good years. I think Luis Medina is somebody to watch, and we'll get to some of these guys. Miguel Andujar, I still think he's got potential. I saw a little hint of it. I still don't think he has anywhere to play. But another guy, Steven Ridings. Why are you excited about Steven Ridings? Because I know I'm excited.
Derek, I was scared to death that the Yankees weren't going to protect him from the Rule 5 draft. And when they thankfully did, like a minute before, I just had a big sigh of relief, because it seems like every year in the bullpen, the Yankees have this guy who sneakily comes out of nowhere and just becomes the absolute dominant presence in there, right? Whether if it's Chad Green a couple years ago, Jonathan Loaizaga, Clay Holmes, it seems like there's always someone who kind of like makes a name for themselves as kind of like a back-end guy in the bullpen. I think that guy in 2022, without a doubt in my mind, if given the correct opportunity, is Steven Ridings, without a doubt. You looked at his stuff that he had on the mound last year, just absolutely devastating. And the fact that I didn't hear of him before he made his major league debut was insane, throwing 102 miles an hour with ease. And not only his stuff on the mound, but Derek, the raw emotion, the attitude.
Yes.
Dude, he has the mind of an absolute warrior. You would think that that's like Madison Bumgarner in the World Series on the mound when Steven Ridings is out there. It just seems like every pitch he throws on that mound, he throws it like his life depends on it. And it's very rare to see out of, like, I don't want to say guys coming out of the Yankees bullpen, but I do want to say it's kind of rare. Seeing that, because it seems like a lot of the times the Yankees call up these relievers from the minor leagues and they enter a game, they run out of the bullpen looking like they're scared to death and they don't want to throw anything. Steven Ridings is the complete opposite. He's the type who wants to throw you his best pitch right down the middle. If you're going to swing and miss, he's going to stare you dead in your eyes and laugh at you. And that's exactly what I want on the Yankees, especially if we're going to lose Luke Voit, because he's kind of like that killer mentality in the clubhouse too. So just adding Steven Ridings and just seeing what he's able to do in 2022, I'm so excited. Not only on the mound, but also in the clubhouse as well.
I agree with your assessment of him 100%. Like, there's some people that you can tell right away that they're just not comfortable out there. Like, I looked at Brooks Kriske, and I see what the Yankees saw. I saw a 94, 95 mile an hour fastball. I saw a good hook. But I look in his eyes, and I saw fear. You know what I mean? I look in Steven Ridings' eyes, and I see somebody, I don't want to say that he's disengaged from it. Like, he seems above it. You know what I mean? When you're as big as he is, like he's 6'8", and he's a ginger. He's heard everything in the book that you can hear. He's probably been made fun of in his whole life, but like nobody's ever been able to really bully him because he's like a giant. He would just squash him. So like, I feel like everybody's individual recipe of their personality, of everything that they've been through growing up, it all feeds into, the mentality that they take out there to the mound. And when I saw him, he just seemed like somebody who just wants to get just get his 3 outs, kind of like Mariano Rivera did.
Killer.
Just a cold-blooded assassin out there. And the Yankees picked him up. He was not really doing well in the minor leagues. I think he was with the Angels. And then 2020 happened. He didn't pitch in the minor leagues at all. Yankees pick him up. Whatever they did to tweak his mechanics, he started throwing strikes. In the minor leagues, 42 strikeouts and 4 walks, I think was his totals. And then he comes up to the major leagues. He had a little bit of an arm issue. Apparently it wasn't serious. But I agree with you 100%. Like, he feels different than Nick Nelson. Like, we said the same thing when Nick Nelson came up. Like, oh my God, the stuff. He's got such a good fastball, good changeup, really good stuff. But he didn't, like, you look at him and he still didn't look as comfortable as Ridings looks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm with you 100% on that. So I'm glad we brought him up. Another guy I want to bring up, and this is because I think the Yankees might be forced into moving Luis Gil. We heard the trade package that was suggested for Matt Olson, which you're seeing on your screen right now, and it included Peraza and Luis Gil. I would hate to trade Luis Gil, one, because I coined the name The Real Deal, and if anybody tries to steal that, I'm going to whoop their ass.
It's a trademark.
That was me. Anyway, I think they might have to move him because I think that's going to be a major asking chip. And you're not going to not trade for somebody like Matt Olson because of Luis Gil. So why not ask for him? I mean, like, I would make that move. Yeah. But if that happens, then you're going to need next year's Luis Gil. Like the guy who's going to come up when you got 2 or 3 guys with COVID, or you got a couple of guys injured, missing starts, tired, whatever. You got 3 or 4 doubleheaders. You're going to need that guy to come up from the minor leagues. And to me, it's Luis Medina because he's gotten better every year. His command still isn't, what we hoped, but working with Matt Blake's instruction, that they're nurturing this guy because he's got a 102-mile-an-hour fastball and a Dwight Gooden curveball. I mean, it's a gravity-defying curveball, or maybe gravity exemplifying, because that thing just heads down like a rock. And I think he could be a guy that steps in and has that, month or 2 stretch where he's a big piece of the rotation. So he's somebody we got to look at. Oh, somebody we didn't mention, well, we mentioned briefly, Freddie Freeman. What do you think about Freddie Freeman? You think he's going back to Atlanta? I think he's going back to Atlanta.
1,000%. I mean, this might come back to bite me like everything else, but I just can't see a world where Freddie Freeman isn't an Atlanta Brave. I feel like I've said that with numerous players in the past too, though, but I just don't really see any scenario where he ends up as a New York Yankee. Like, if that's what people are concerned about, I think the odds of that happening are probably about the same as the Yankees abolishing the facial hair policy this year.
Yeah. Look, it's
fun to talk about, though.
I don't want to poo-poo it because stranger things have happened, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I think he's going to go back to Atlanta. He just won a World Series there. The town would absolutely crucify management if they let him go. I mean, there would be a revolt. He is beloved there. I mean, look at those numbers. 896 also, OPS.
Derek, I'm not trying to see him clean shaven. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know.
But you know what I did like about Freddie Freeman? I love the way he ran the bases. You remember the Yankees played the Braves, and he was a guy who was taking 2 bases on a single. He was playing. He was playing harder than anybody played for the Yankees.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I do feel like that's a thing with the Yankees. Their philosophy is obviously get men on base, hit home runs, and then throw ground balls and get strikeouts on the mound. That's their philosophy in a nutshell. And because of that, you just don't see those hard-nosed players very often. Like Brett Gardner's one of those guys. He just doesn't have the talent anymore to be on base that much. You know what I mean? But back in 2012, maybe, when he was putting up, decent numbers, and he was that guy who would take 2 bases and just, be a dirtbag out there. I feel like the Yankees could use 1 or 2 of those guys, and I think that Freeman, he would add that value. But again, it's just a lot of money for a guy in his 30s who's going to decline. It always happens. You sign somebody in their 30s and they decline. I want to see him go back to Atlanta, and I want the Yankees to trade for Matt Olson. That's what I got. So I lost the comment, but we're going to do some audience Q&A. Somebody said, what do you think about the Carlos Beltran addition to the Yes Network? What are you feeling about that?
Dude, first of all, before we like address this, I love Q&A. Like this is like my favorite thing to do, just like grab questions from the chat. But first of all, the Beltron the Beltron Yes Network thing, I think they signed him on for 36 games. I guess he'll be filling in for like what half of what Cone was doing because he's going to be doing Sunday Night Baseball, so he's going to miss half of his games. I really like it. Carlos Beltran, I'm a huge fan of him. I think he's an awesome baseball mind. I wish the Yankees kind of would have given him a coaching job where he would have been in the dugout, but obviously that doesn't really seem to be the case. I just find it super ironic that I saw like the same Yankees fans who like hate Carlos Correa being so happy about the Carlos Beltran acquisition for Yes Network. It's like you can't pick and choose which Houston Astros you hate, especially when Carlos Beltran was kind of like the kingpin of it all. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what he's going to bring to Yes Network, but hopefully it does lead to a coaching job one day. Because like I said, awesome baseball mind.
Yeah, so that was my first thought too. It was to give fans who might be a little iffy on him being the godfather of the whole Astros thing and then going to the Mets and getting relieved. It might be a way to get fans to realize how smart he is and want him. Because you always hear fans saying, put Paul O'Neill in the booth, put David Cohn in the booth. Well, or in the booth, put him on, in coaching jobs. Yeah. I think that, once they get a load of Carlos Beltran, you're going to hear the same thing, and then in a year or two, he's going to be in the dugout somewhere. Fritz Walter says, what about Rizzo? I think we talked about Rizzo a little bit, but somebody said, did he publicly say that he would take a Yankees discount? I didn't hear that. Typically, players will not say that they'll take a discount because you don't want to get you want full price for your services. Yeah. But I think he would be willing to come back to the Yankees at a lower cost because, you do have a chance to win or at least play in meaningful games, which might not be the case everywhere. I personally think Rizzo is going to Boston. I think he's going to go to Boston, and I think he's going to do well hitting the ball off the monster out there, going the other way.
If Rizzo goes to Boston, you think the Yankees make a run at Schwarber?
Sounds like the Rockies are really in on Schwarber, and I read an article the other day that said the Rockies were close to signing him before lockout began. And Schwarber, honestly, in Colorado, is 50 home runs. I mean, can you imagine Schwarber and Voit trading off first base DH duties in the National League next year in Colorado?
Yeah, I mean, it would be cool, but also at the same time, it's like they're not playing for anything, so it's like no one would really watch them. You know what I mean? So it's like...
Well, I mean, you add a couple of bats. See, I've always had this philosophy about the Rockies, and it began the right way. When the Rockies first moved into Coors Field, they just loaded up on hitters. You know what I mean? It's like, lean into it. Try and outslug everybody at your home ballpark. If you can dominate at home, that's enough to get into the playoffs. And as we saw in 2007, you get into the playoffs, they can go to the World Series,
Sure.
It's tough to play in Colorado if you're not used to those conditions in the winter, in the late fall.
Yeah.
I think they could be, I don't think they're going to make a run, but if you stack that lineup with a bunch of hitters and then just get some pitchers that are kind of funky, guys who are all arms and legs, maybe throw a weird pitch, I think there's a way to win in Colorado using that formula.
I mean, it'll be tough, but like, I think in a couple of years' time, maybe, but definitely not just by like adding Schwarber,
Sean Browning says, writers pick and choose who gets the Hall of Fame nod. I feel like we can spend an entire episode talking about that. I saw your episode the other night. I know you think it's BS. I want to throw an idea at you. In Japan, they have statistical milestones that automatically put you into their equivalent of the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's a museum. I think the same thing should apply. If you hit 500 home runs, you're in the Hall of Fame. If you did steroids, you did steroids. There's documentaries and there's books for a reason to give a more complete story. But I think it was Buster Olney. It might have been another writer. Might have been Passan who put it in the most simple way. If you have a museum that talks about baseball history, you should have the person who hit the most home runs in the museum. Hey, it is what it is.
Which I think he is. I think there is like some sort of like Barry Bonds stuff in Cooperstown, because how could you have like a Baseball Hall of Fame? But I think the problem is that he doesn't have a plaque. He's not inducted in Hall of Fame. But the fact that he's mentioned throughout Cooperstown, which I could be wrong about, but I think he is weird. It's really weird. The whole thing is weird. I think kind of like having like statistical barriers that players could cross in order to like automatically be inducted cool. But I think that there definitely needs to be like one sort of general filter. And that's what I thought the Hall of Fame was going to be, right? Especially when Bonds and Clemens didn't make it their first time around. I was like, okay, cool. Like they're just not going to be inducting the steroid guys, like no matter how good they did in their career. And then you have guys like Pudge go in. You have guys like Piazza go in. And now Ortiz is in on his first ballot. And now the barrier as far as steroids go is kind of foggy because you don't necessarily have any sort of criteria among like possible steroid users. It's more so which players do we like the most. It's becoming the Hall of Fame of like nice guys and players that we enjoy watching. And that's why I had this hour-long discussion, I think it was on Monday, kind of about like this whole Thursday, about the whole Hall of Fame nonsense. And also I'm kind of like looking towards the future and what this means for the future. And I look at a guy like Jose Altuve. A lot of people rip me to shreds for this, but that's fine. I look at Jose Altuve and I imagine if he finishes his career with over 3,000 hits, there is zero doubt in my mind that he should be a Hall of Famer. Now, would he be a Hall of Famer? I don't know because of his part in the Astros cheating scandal, whether if he was one of the least amount of users who use the trash can or whatever. I think wholeheartedly that if this dude has an amazing career and finishes with 3,000 hits or close to that, he should 100% be in the Hall of Fame, and I don't think that there's any way you can convince me otherwise.
So that reminded me of a great sports story. So Altuve should be in the Hall of Fame just for this reason. He got cut from like a tryout and showed up the next day.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm not cut. It's like, I mean, the brass balls to do that. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
I heard a great sports story, and this is slightly off topic, but it made me think about like, what if this happened in baseball? So I'm watching this Ken Burns documentary, and Ken Burns does a lot of historical documentaries. He did the baseball documentary. He did one on World War II, Vietnam, the Buffalo, whatever. But he just released one on Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali, when he was up and coming, I think he was about 19 or 20 years old. I think he was 20 years old. And he was getting ready to fight Sonny Liston for the heavyweight championship of the world. Now, Sonny Liston at the time was kind of like Mike Tyson. He was a big, strong dude, just like beat people with sheer brute, blunt force trauma. He was intimidating. He was tied in with the mob and all this stuff. And Muhammad Ali, who was Cassius Clay at this time, a couple of days before the fight, he drives to Sonny Liston's house at 3 a.m. while he's asleep, lays on the car horn in his Cadillac, just lays on the car horn. And the neighbors start waking up. People start calling the cops. And Sonny Liston comes out of his house. And Muhammad Ali just comes out and starts trash talking him in his own front yard at 3 a.m. saying, if you bet on Sonny, you'll lose your money. Like, it was hilarious. The balls to do that. And I started thinking, like, what if that happened in sports today? Like, what if Aaron Judge went to Chris Sale's house before a big Red Sox series in Boston and just woke him up at 3 a.m. and started yelling at him? That would be hilarious. To me, that was the funniest story. I was dying laughing. Apparently, the Rams have won. Charge.
I'm into football.
I'm not a big football guy, but I've been kind of keeping up with the last couple of weeks just because there's been some fun games. It's mostly through highlights or whatever, but I thought it was interesting the Chiefs lost today.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that kind of upset me because, I got to support my fellow people named Patrick. So, it is what it is.
Sean Browning says, who should be our shortstop? Patrick, we know where you stand. We mentioned this last time. You're still a Carlos Correa guy, right?
No, I've actually changed. I'm now an Andrelton Simmons guy. Huge Andrelton Simmons guy. I mean, if he's not the Yankees starting shortstop on opening day, I might not watch. So we'll see.
So I honestly think the Yankees they're going to try and allocate their money differently. I think that they're going to take on more contracts. Excuse me. I think that they're going to probably try and make a deal with the A's where they get a few players, and that kind of spreads around their big chunks of salary that they take on. And then I think they'll go with the stopgap solution. I still think that they're not going to sign Andrelton Simmons. I think that they'll trade for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. I mean, he's still my guy. Defensively, he's great. And here's what they're going to do. They're going to say, hey, give us 2 or 3 months, and then we'll bring up one of the kids. I was thinking about the kids. Do you remember in 2017 when everybody was saying the kids were like 1 or 2 years away, and the whole thing was the kids should be like blossoming by 2019, and that's the year we
Yeah.
sign Bryce Harper or Manny Machado, and then we're all set. But it didn't work out that way. The kids kind of, Sanchez had a good year ahead of time. Judge hit 52 home runs, and everybody was ahead of schedule, essentially. Bird had a good year that year for the most part. I think he was injured, but, he was good when he played. What if, you just give Peraza the Derek Jeter treatment and let him start the season? He's going to struggle for a couple of months, or you could just bring him up in like June. Let's say he's playing well in AAA. The guy's going to be 21, 22 years old. I mean, how long do you need to keep these guys in the minor leagues? Do they need to all be 26 when they come up like some of these guys?
I mean, here's my thing, right? Like you can compare it to 2017, I guess, just in terms of like relying on young guys to kind of like bring you to the promised land. But the one huge difference between 2022 and 2017 is that 2017 was supposed to be a rebuild year. Like that was kind of just an accident that the Yankees made it so far and like were competitive the entire season. 2022 is, I don't want to say it's the final year of the World Series window with this core, but it might be the final year of the World Series window with this core. So I don't really want to like go into the season having to rely on like an Oswald Peraza as our starting shortstop, or even like in the middle of June if you have to rely on him to become like your everyday shortstop. I'd much rather have like a solidified guy that you can rely on until you actually see Peraza and Volpe actually put up like significant numbers at the AAA level to the point where you're like, okay, like they seem like they're major league ready, kind of like what Gleyber Torres was doing before they called him up to the big leagues in 2018. I don't really feel the need to be rushing these guys when the Yankees are competing for a World Series right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they are competing for a World Series right now. You know what I mean? Like they need some heavy. They should be, but they're not. Carlos Ayala says no story at all. So, I just don't see them spending big on Trevor Story, but if he's willing to do a 1-year deal, I would consider that. I just don't think he'd be willing to do that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Carlos actually was wondering why you didn't tell a story tonight.
I just did. I told 2 stories. Okay.
No, but as far as Trevor Story goes, like I'm a huge Trevor Story guy. I think if the Yankees want to go with like a little stopgap, I think Trevor Story is a perfect fit.
THG says, if you want to address the starting staff, which I do, who do you guys target? For me, it's Carlos Rodon.
Carlos Rodon's cool, but I think the problem is I was looking at his stats the other day, and there's no consistency there. I think there's only one season in his career he debuted in like 2015 where he's made like over 20 starts or something like that. Yeah, last season was an outlier when you look at his career stats. So he's going to be demanding a few years, a decent amount of money. I think I don't know if the Yankees would want to take that risk because we've seen their mentality the past couple of years. It's very like low risk, high reward. And I think Carlos Rodon's like the opposite. I think you've already seen his peak, and I think it's a huge risk.
Senior Nerd says, is Aaron Hicks the starting center fielder for the Yankees, or are they going after Ketel Marte, Brian Reynolds, or Seiya Suzuki? So I actually have a prediction video coming out. I invented something I'm calling Nostraderic. Or Nostradamus, if it's wrong.
I call myself Pastradamus, so it's kind of the same thing.
Nice. I think that Suzuki could be a possibility. The Yankees do like to bring in the Japanese players because it's good revenue. I mean, you make the money from Japan. There's a heavy Japanese population. It is a business, and he's a good player. He's contact oriented, and he's really good in the strike zone. Like, he doesn't chase out of the strike zone, doesn't strike out much. And apparently he's a really good defender, even though he's been playing left field. Everything that I've read suggests that he would be fine in center field because he's like the best left fielder, and he's blocked, in center field. So I'd be all in favor for Seiya Suzuki. I don't care that he's not left-handed, but signing Seiya Suzuki would give the Yankees a bunch of interchangeable parts because you could put Gallo in center and Suzuki in left, or vice versa. Judge can play center now and then. It's like you can go with any package that you want in the outfield. You could have Stanton and Judge on the corners and Gallo in center if you wanted to. So Suzuki is my guy. I think Aaron Hicks makes the team, but I think, like we've said before, he's lost his starting job just out of a combination of not being able to stay on the field and diminished performance after Tommy John surgery.
Listen, I love Seiya Suzuki. Have you seen his swing? It's beautiful.
Beautiful. Oh,
Like it's a thing of beauty. I'd love to see him in the Bronx. But I think the thing that does kind of turn the Yankees away from him is the fact that he's not a natural center fielder. The fact that they're kind of like locked in at the corners, and even though they easily could, I don't see them moving like Judge or Gallo to center field. But I think that's probably what's going to hold them back from Seiya Suzuki. I just hope he doesn't go to the Red Sox because that's going to hurt really bad.
Lori C says, will Gary be trade bait at the deadline? I mean, honestly, it depends on what he's doing and what the Yankees are doing. If the Yankees are 14 games out at the deadline and Sanchez is having even a decent year, I think the Yankees will move him, but it would require a team that needs a catcher too. I mean, like, how many playoff teams are there that don't have a catcher? And, you know, how many are looking for a bat? You know, I could see him getting moved as a DH. You know what I mean? Let's say there's a team making a charge in the National League with the DH, and they've got, you know, they didn't have time to get somebody before the season began. I could see him getting moved because nobody's going to want him catching important games. I mean, including the Yankees. You know, I don't see them trading him. I think we're stuck with him for a year, and then I think he's going to sign somewhere else as a hitter.
It's not happening. It's not happening.
Will Smith says, "Yo, Pat,
which one though?
Who do you want to win the big game? The Bengals or the Rams?"
The Bengals. Okay, so I don't really have like a team in football, right? I've kind of just been going like week by week and like picking which teams I want. I got to go Bengals. 2 reasons. One, Joe Burrow, like, dude, he's an absolute stud. Second of all, the Bengals might have the best uniforms, not only in the NFL, but maybe in all of sports. Like,
I love the Bengals uniforms. I used to have a Bengals jacket. I inherited it like as a hand-me-down from my brothers, and it was white and it had orange like Bengals sleeves. It was
fire.
It was fire. Kian Patel says, "What do you think about Joey Gallo at first base?" I don't think about Joey Gallo at first base because I think that would be a waste of I think that would be a waste of Joey Gallo. I mean, he's too good defensively in the outfield, and the Yankees need outfielders. Let's see here. Lori C says, "Is Gallo trade bait?" I wouldn't say it's out of the question, but I think they're going to keep Gallo.
I would. I don't know why people are kind of like just discrediting Joey Gallo. Like, I talk about this all the time. Like, I know Joey Gallo was not good with the Yankees after coming over, but this dude is an absolute stud. Not only offensively, but defensively as well. We're talking about one of the best defensive outfielders in the game. Stop hating on Joey Gallo, everyone. Please.
Lori C says, "Who's the all-time greatest superhero?" I'm a Batman guy. What about you?
I have never seen like a Marvel movie, like any of those movies, but my favorite superhero is a man by the name of Aaron Judge.
So here's the thing about Batman. I feel like
he doesn't do anything.
No, he's amazing. Like, his superpower is that he's rich. You know what I mean? Like, he got in shape. Like, I feel like if I was a billionaire, I could be Batman. Like, I could get in shape and I could learn to be a ninja.
Like
I
Jeff
can't learn.
Bezos.
I can't learn to fly. Like, yeah, what a waste of billions of dollars just hanging out on yachts with supermodels. Actually,
he's swole now.
Masters of the Universe. It was a cartoon. I remember it when I was a little kid. Unhinged Chiefs Antonio says, "Up, guys? Any relation there?" Look at you spawning off other Unhinged brands. I don't even have any other recaps brands.
Yeah, no, Derek, it's wild. It gets wild sometimes. I like it. Sometimes he's Unhinged polls, Antonio, because, you know, he likes doing polls in the chat. But, yeah.
All right, guys. I appreciate everybody for joining tonight. That's going to do it for this episode of The Frieze. Got some fun stuff coming up this week. Thanks to everybody in the comments. Have a wonderful rest of the lockout. Hopefully we'll be seeing something soon. Patrick, thank you once again.
Derek, it was great. It was great, Derek.
Guys, you can get this audio on The Frieze, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Audible, wherever you get your podcasts. This year, we will have an episode of The Frieze every Sunday and before every series. And so it's going to be a lot more conversations. It's going to be a lot more, I've built some fun segments. Like, I've been working on some stuff this winter, so we're going to have a ton more segments. And Patrick, I think we talked about 6'4" 3 DP before and after games on Wednesdays. You down?
Yeah. No, I'm down 1,000%. And I was gonna say, in addition to like what you're already doing, if you could do like the Frieze, maybe like an ASMR version.
What is ASMR? Is that like a
You
kid?
You never heard of it?
No.
It's
what is
like
that?
like when people like breathe into their microphone. It's like it's like that kind of stuff. Yeah, you should do that.
This was the Frieze.
We could do that. One of the 643s we do. We'll make it like that. We'll
A whisper
just
version?
Whisper into the mic. Yeah.
We'll do that. We'll do that on your channel. Night, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Yankee Stadium.